Good evening again. I'd like to call the committee of the whole for the Village of Kerry for November 16th, 2021 to order with roll call, please.
Collier.
Here.
Walrath.
Here.
Dudek.
Here.
Pavelli.
Here.
McAlpine.
Here.
Weinhammer. Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now moving to the public comment portion. Is everybody here would like to address the committee of the whole? I'd say no. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that at 6:16. Thank you. Moving with discussion regarding First Street corridor improvements. Director Morimoto.
Thank you, Mayor. So this evening, we have a few updates for you on the progress of our First Street improvement project that is currently under design. The project, as you may recall from our budget process, includes improving First Street from Three Oaks Road to the north to Route 14 to the south. So this map before you has north pointing to the right. And the project consists generally of asphalt pavement resurfacing, sidewalk and curb replacement, some storm sewer improvements to hopefully improve some of the stormwater capacity that is much needed in that part of town. And then finally, the addition of some bicycle accommodations. Just as a refresher for the process for these types of projects, this is a improvement that the village is hoping to apply for and obtain grant funding to assist in the construction for the project. So our intent is to prepare what is called a Phase 1 preliminary design report that will then be utilized in our submittals to the Illinois DOT and as part of the process for the hopeful achievement of a surface transportation program grant. The call for projects for that grant is next year. As part of that process, the inclusion of bicycle accommodations does help enhance our scoring for the grant project. Some of the examples of bike facilities that are most common for this type of roadway, this is not inclusive of all the types that are out there, but kind of the four main ones that we look at when these types of projects come up are conventional bike lanes, shared use paths, which is the off-street facility most common in Kerry, on-street bike routes, and then the last would be buffered bike lanes, which are very similar to bike lanes with the addition of some additional space between the travel lane and the cyclist. So this evening I have with us our consultants from Baxter & Woodman, Jason Fleur, and he's going to go through some of the alternatives that were investigated as part of the design.
Good evening, Mayor Koenig and members of the board. I'm Jason Fleur with Baxter & Woodman. I'm the project manager. If you don't mind, I'll take this so you can understand me a little bit better. So just want to go over some of the alternatives that we looked at for the bike accommodations. The overriding guiding principles for us while we were looking at these different alternatives is which alternative would be least impactful to the residents and the character of the neighborhood, which one would have the highest safety benefit, and finally, which one would be the most fundable project, so to speak? Which project sets the village up best to leverage some funding? So alternative one, we looked at on-street buffered bike lanes. And so this would utilize the existing footprint of the street, curb to curb. We would not widen any of the street. The street is currently wide enough to provide 5-foot bike lanes with a 2-foot buffer, which is a painted median that provides some separation between the vehicles and the bicyclists, and then still the two-way traffic. So obvious advantages of this type of improvement: it's the least impactful. It's not impacting any trees, utility lines. It does impact the on-street parking. On a later slide, I'll kind of summarize some of these pros and cons, but that's kind of the idea of the first alternative being the on-street buffered bike lanes. So the second alternative we looked at was a separated bike path. We looked at both the east and the west sides of the road. We believe that the east side of the road would be the least impactful. There's the least number of conflict points or driveways and cross streets, the least number of trees, and the least number of utility poles. Still high impact, but when comparing east versus west, it appears that the east side would be the least impactful. So this would be an 8-foot wide HMA bike path that would be separated from traffic. That's the main advantage of this is the separation from traffic.
Just a quick second.
Sure.
So on the previous slide, the cars with the indent, would those still be in there, or the curb would be all exactly how the picture is portrayed with the after?
Yeah, no, good point. Thanks for, I missed that. Yes, that parking next to the apartments would have to be removed with the off-street bike path. Thank you. So this is an aerial image. I know there's a lot there, and it's probably difficult to glean a whole lot from there, but just wanted to highlight a short section of the project demonstrating from an aerial view what it might look like, both the on-street bike lanes and the off-street. So you can see on the top is alternative 1 with the on-street buffered bike lanes. On the bottom, alternative 2 is a separated path represented by the yellow line. We're showing some of the driveway replacement and impacts in red, and some parking to be removed shown in the blue. And then it highlights, for example, some trees and utility poles that would be in conflict with this alternative. So we did a detailed comparison between the two. Again, looking at safety, impact to the neighborhood, and fundability. So as far as safety, both alternatives have some pros and cons with regard to safety. Both are very appropriate designs that follow all of IDOT guidelines. The on-street bike lane has an advantage of traffic calming, having a traffic calming impact. We would reduce the through lanes from, currently they're, I believe, 12-foot wide. We would reduce those to 12 feet, which is the minimum width, but that'll provide some traffic calming characteristics. And then adjacent to the buffered lane and the bike lane. It'll just make the road feel a little bit narrower and hopefully slow vehicles down. Staying on the topic of safety, the separated path obviously separates the bikers from the traffic, so safe with regard to conflicts between vehicles and bikers. However, it introduces a lot of driveway conflicts. So every time a biker crosses a driveway, there's a potential for a vehicle to be hanging on that or parked right over top of that path as they're waiting to turn onto First Street. So a safety concern there. Moving down to the utility pole conflicts, obviously with the on-street, there's no impact. I'll cover the poles and the trees at the same time. No impacts to the poles or the trees with the on-street, but significant impacts with the off-street. 17 utility poles to be relocated, 20 trees to be removed with that plan. Parking, the on-street parking would be removed with the on-street bike lanes. We could maintain that parking for the most part with the off-street, with the exception of that parking that we just talked about in front of the apartments.
Is that actually reversed? It should be on-street bike lanes is maintain existing, and then off-street bike path should be the elimination of on-street parking.
No, so the on-street bike lanes will eliminate, so there's on-street parking up and down.
Right, but your picture didn't show that. Go back to the pictures. So this is your on-street and it still shows the parking.
Yeah, no, I guess, sorry. So there's two different types of, there's kind of the parking by the apartments, that's kind of the curb
Right.
bump
Curb
outs.
cutout. Mhm.
But there's also parking along the street in addition to this parking. Am I incorrect about that?
Kind of by the cemetery, but I don't think we allow parking up by.
Yeah, I don't think so.
There is on-street parking permitted on First Street except for certain areas on the south end and the north end.
Okay.
So it's really toward 14 and then toward the signal at Three Oaks Road where it's restricted.
So to clarify, you would get, in this alternative one you've got here, you're maintaining this parallel parking that's currently cut out. However, it would necessitate an elimination of on-street parking not shown outside of this picture.
Correct, yeah. Sorry, I can see how that would be confusing.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry. Cars can park currently here inside the curb line. And obviously, in this new condition, that's where the bike lane and the buffer would reside. So it's just the parking inside the existing curb and gutter line. Anything outside that curb line that's recessed into the parkway would remain, which is limited just to those 6 to 8 spaces.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. So then as far as the phase one process that Director Morimoto talked about, obviously a resurfacing project with not a whole lot of impacts. The processing time to get the phase one report is much shorter than, a separated bike path, which is considered a new facility. And so there's just a lot more hoops to jump through, and it's just a little bit longer process for that phase one report to be approved. As far as future maintenance, again, the on-street has the advantage there. It introduces additional pavement markings that, of course, need to be maintained. But the off-street introduces a new 8-foot wide path that would be more costly to maintain. As far as cost, we estimate the on-street at approximately $1 million, and the off-street path at approximately $1.5 million. We also did a mock scoring system. There's the STP, Call for Projects, is coming up here in January. And that will be, we've identified that as a really good source to apply for funding for this project. And so we did a couple mock scoring systems with the 2 different alternatives. And we found that the on-street bike lanes will likely score higher than the off-street. So with all that said, so we worked closely with staff, and the preferred alternative is for the on-street bike lanes. We believe it's, the least impactful to the community in general. We recognize that there are a couple unique situations, in particular the preschool with some of the overflow parking and the busing that we're going to have to work through, restricting parking because of the bike lane. We're going to have to work through some of those things. But take all things considered with the price, safety, and setting the village up for future funding, we believe that the on-street is the preferred alternative. But we wanted to bring it forth to the board tonight for consideration and get some feedback, see what your thoughts are.
Anybody have any comments, feedback, questions?
So just talking about Oak Knoll School, where the parents come, and there's a lot of parents that come and pick up their children there.
Eric, can you go back to the previous slide, please?
So what's going through my mind with Oak Knoll is that a lot of parents are probably going to, get in line early to pick up their kids. They're going to be lined up on the street. And I'm just wondering what that process is going to look like. I'm just thinking that if they can't pull over to the side, cars aren't going to be able to go through during that time period, and it's going to be very congested.
No, exactly. That facet, that's why, like on the screen there, you can see there, we mentioned by and large the bike lanes would require on-street parking to be eliminated. There's these areas in green that we show there that are approaching Oak Knoll School that we have to work. We would have to work out the details, whether it's a transition from bike lanes to a a striped parking lane that was only occupied by cars. We have something similar to that on Georgetown and West Main and Cimarron. But that has disadvantages as well, because then you are merging and blending bicycle traffic with what is, at least for a few minutes on school days, a very congested and highly utilized parking lane. So those details that we would continue to work out with Jason and his team. But we are cognizant of that, and we'll keep the school district in the loop as well.
Okay, thanks for pointing that out.
Anybody else? Trustee Dudek, you look like you got something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all in for bicycle lanes. I think that's a necessity, but I'm also curious, do we have any idea how many bikes actually would travel this road?
And obviously, it could come down to if you build it, they will come kind of approach. But not being one as an engineer to rely just upon the idea and the hope that they will come here. This corridor is very uniquely situated with a lot of high density of residential, a lot of homes, and then a lot of key destinations that would be ideal for someone to walk or bike to, with Kerry Grove High School to the north, Oak Knoll Early Childhood Center. You have the library and Three Oaks Elementary just to the northeast of here. And of course, might be one of the crown jewels of the Kerry area is the new Aquatic Center directly to the north at the end of First Street. So it is by and large, I think, an area that's really probably not utilized for cycling right now because of the lack of a facility, the lack of a path or lack of bike lanes. But it is, at least my opinion, that once this facility is in place with those destinations there, that it will get utilized a lot more.
So following up on that, Eric, do we ever do bike lanes just on one side of the street? So you're going to have to redo the street. You're going to have to restripe it and everything, correct? So could you just have the bike path on the west side of First Street to not impact the parking along the east side that, seems to be problematic or could be problematic? Can you do that and just have maybe a wider path?
You could, but of course, you still need both directions of travel, so you would still need an 8 to 10 foot wide path. So you still need to take some of that excess pavement that's available, and you'd have to remove that parking to make that happen.
So I guess my question is a little bit more specific. Do you have to have a path that wide? Is there anything to prohibit a bike from going, two directions on either of the side of the street, right? I mean, there isn't any laws, are there, Chief, to which way the bikes have to go on a bike path?
Usually it's with traffic.
It usually is with traffic, but there's also sidewalks that most bikes don't ride on, and that's much safer than either of these alternatives, right? So I guess I'm just curious, is there an option to just do one side of the street, whether it's twice as wide or just, the standard, to not have to impact the parking? Is that an option we've looked at all, or?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, because I think if you're going to have contraflow, your bike versus your vehicular, you would want a raised barrier to protect. So then again, you're taking that width, that same width that we would have, had 5 foot on one side and 5 on the other. You're just kind of combining it. So there are minimum standards for width. 4 foot is the bare minimum, but for this type of road, generally 5 foot or wider per direction for a bike lane. So if it's a 2-direction path, then 8 foot would be the minimum. But again, if you're on the same side of the street, then you would want a raised barrier. So again, you're back to like 10, 11 feet, and you're taking that excess.
Okay, thank you.
And adding to that, because we're applying for, hopefully for federal funds on this project, we do have to meet all of IDOT standards. So obviously with this type of facility and to get the points that we're hoping to get in the ranking, we want this facility to qualify as a new bike facility. So if we did want the option of having partial facility, separated bike lane in one direction and maybe just a bike route on the other. To your question, yes, it could be done. But I think in this case, it's probably not recommended given the demand we'll probably see. And then our points would probably suffer as well.
Okay, thank you.
My comments are that I think that we're moving as a society towards more biking, more outdooring. You know, we're seeing that all over the place. So I think that I like the first approach. I think that's a wiser way to go from a maintenance standpoint, from a turn time for the points. And of course, as Trustee Weinheimer mentioned, I firmly agree with what you said you're going to do. You have to work within the parameters of some of the challenges in there and see how we can modify it so that to make the least disruption possible when you have high traffic times during the preschool, as I said, drop-off pickups, things like that. But I think it's smart. I think it's forward thinking that, again, if you build it, they will come. But I think they are coming. I think we're seeing an increase in that type of living.
So I am in favor of alternative one. I just wanted to clarify, this is just basically to go ahead and apply for the grant with phase one, correct?
Yes, what we would do is proceed with our preferred alternative in this case. We would have Baxter Woodman continue the process to get that preliminary design report finished in time to have it in IDOT's hands before the call for projects, which is the trigger for those extra points. And we would also carry this option to a public meeting. So we'll have a separate meeting that will present this to the general public as well with similar exhibits.
Eric,
Sorry, I meant alternative one, yes.
I do have one other question. What is the rating for us of First Street? When would that be anticipated to be redone?
It would, and I'll have Jason jump in on this. I believe it would be a little bit at the mercy of the what projects are approved in that call with the STP funding. So they have to program a certain number of projects with however much money is available per year. But I was hoping in our CIP, we were hoping to have it completed in and constructed in 2025, I believe.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
It's in need of replacement. Trustee Walworth, do you have any questions or comments?
I do not. No, thank you, Mayor.
Trustee Guyer?
Option one, I'm fine with on street.
I'm fine with option one. One of the things that I note, I am up and down First Street several times during the day, and the amount of school traffic there, especially in the morning and at night. I mean, cars are lined up back down to the cemetery, waiting to get into, do their little jog in and out of the school. And I don't see a lot of cars parked on First Street for the most part, except for in front of Garden Place where the indentation is, up and down. I just am concerned about the traffic at Oak Knoll. I think that that's something, and I don't know if you have something off the top of your head, how do we mitigate that situation? What are you thinking that is going to help in this, because we'll have the school that we're going to have to deal with if we do this and we eliminate options for parking, because with the buses and the cars and, we've kind of mitigated some of those problems with not permitting, southbound left-hand turns at certain part of times. We kind of work with them in that. I just want to make sure that we're looking at everything objectively.
Yes, and I think kind of similar to Trustee Dudek's approach, there could be some hybrids of mixing and matching some of these different types of bike facilities to alleviate that concern with Oak Knoll. So that's definitely the part we'll keep putting that pen to paper on.
Okay. Trustee Cavelli, do you have anything?
I'm good with option one. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you got a consensus that option one is the way to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the Kerry Lake at Rotary Park Pavilion design. Director Morimoto, you're up again.
Yeah, I'll stand up here for a bit more here. So one more update for the committee of the whole. We have with our consultant, who is also available via Zoom if there's any questions, from Hitchcock Design Group.
Thank you.
We do have the schematic design completed for the new pavilion that's proposed at Rotary Park. As you might recall from the budget process and some other discussions, the inspiration that we are moving forward with in that schematic design was the example pavilion up in our neighbors to the north at the village of Prairie Grove. And with that in mind, Hitchcock Design Group has found a manufacturer of a prefabricated unit that in doing this manner as opposed to a purely custom design does help us in the cost department. So this is just one example of a product that's out there that meets most, if not all, of the aesthetic parameters that we were shooting for with that inspiration design that you see there. So with the schematic design, Hitchcock Design Group has shown us how the stock product from from the manufacturer could be customized to further enhance the aesthetic of it, and additional functions could be added as well. So they've suggested the addition of stone column wraps, again, similar to that inspiration design, that goes about 4 feet from the ground up the height of each column. And the other addition would be an optional fireplace feature, which in this case for our design, they're suggesting the better look and function would be to have that fire feature on the short side of the structure as opposed to the middle of the long length side of the building. And with that, there's a couple options out there, but these are 2 examples of 2 types of fireplaces on some area structures. You can go with a more substantial, wider base that tapers, or if you want to keep it more minimal and a little more sleek, you can go with this narrower example like alternate A there. So here's a 3D rendering that kind of shows the scope of the overall project. So not only would we propose the new shelter, but we would have to do some other improvements to the site to accommodate that structure. One of the main features would be a new sidewalk that we would require to be in place, along with relocating some of the accessible parking. So that way the structure would meet all the current ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, requirements. In addition to that, we are suggesting an alternate to mirror that sidewalk that is shown there on the top of the screen on the opposite side of the parking lot for a little bit of symmetry and give you access to the new shelter from both of the existing trails that spur off the parking lot. As we mentioned, we have an alternate for an optional fireplace. In this case, we're suggesting that one option would be to have that fireplace be 2-sided, so that you can not only enjoy the fireplace from underneath the shelter, but on the patio on the outside as well. So you can enjoy the fire and the full outdoor view of the park as well. These are just some more perspective renderings from each direction of the new shelter. As I mentioned, on that lower right side, it does show the optional fire feature with the second side of the fireplace. Again, additional renderings, some of the inspirations for those fire features. Three Oaks Recreation Area at Crystal Lake has a similar fireplace with the more substantial base, and Veteran Acres Park, also on Crystal Lake, has the more streamlined design as well. And at the bottom of this image, you can see what it would look like with and without the fireplace, just for comparison. In terms of estimated costs, depending on the options that are selected, the project's total project cost would be between $317,000 and $398,000. That would be subject to change for the actual bids that would be available at the time of the order, which would be something we'd be ready to do over the winter into 2022. Just given today's current economy and supply chains and market factors, it's a little bit hard to exactly estimate that, but that's based on the current costs. This is about what we're looking at this point. You can see that the addition of just the fireplace feature adds about another $67,000. The north sidewalk feature adds another $14,000, and that would encompass the full range of options there. So with that, as I mentioned, our consultant is available for questions, and I have the imagery on the screen of those 4 different options. Just the base bid of the structure itself with the sidewalk and accessible parking. The base bid plus the fireplace would be option 2. Option 3 would be just the base bid and just the sidewalk, but no fireplace. And then option 4 would be everything as shown throughout this presentation with all the options. So I'd love to hear your feedback, and if you like the layout, the look, anything at all, we appreciate the comments.
What do we have?
Well, this is wonderful. I just feel like maybe I'm out of the loop because I thought for some reason that the pavilion was going to be more in the cost of $100,000. Is that what I had heard from?
No, that was through the generous donation of the Glenecki family. They're
So this is
starting
all
out,
based upon their donation?
well, no, they're going to pay the first $100,000.
Okay.
We were budgeting to put money in it from a village perspective, and then the Rotary was going to be raising money as well.
Okay.
I think when we originally started and working with the Rotary, I think we were looking at more of the $100,000 number, just since the Rotary was going to bring the majority of the money to the table. And then, since that time, we've gotten a donation. Some of the board members, I know the mayor and I have gone out to Prairie Grove and, saw what that looked like and realized that we want something that we're going to be proud of. And so the price has gone up a little bit. And then too, just supply chain issues since when we first started talking about this. Prices have increased for materials.
So I'm completely out of touch with how things cost as far as pavilions and things like that. I'm going to listen to what the rest of the board says. And I'm just going to say I think it's a lot of money.
I have a question. So with this, is the intent to maybe permit for picnics, for weddings, for
Reunions,
outdoor
yes.
events where some of that cost may help offset?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that going to be implemented right away? Are we going to start doing that, or? are we gonna-
Well, as soon as we can get it built, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So we're going to have a rental fee attached to
Right.
it, and you can reserve.
Well, we've been talking just in-house with staff about, what that would look like. There could be different levels of use with the fireplace that we could provide at a cost. Firewood, people can bring their own firewood. It seems to be a big hit at some of these other municipalities that have it. People are using it. We're in an age right now where people want to be outdoors. They're looking for things to do in their communities. So this would be an opportunity for us to kind of satisfy that need and really showcase our lake out there.
Eric, is there electric provided in that building for people?
We have the option and the ability to add it in. One of
It's
the
not in the
projects that
cost yet.
it's not part of this cost. We're working on bringing that power in as a separate project in our current fiscal year budget.
Right, when is that, was supposed to be in by now, no?
We're still working with ComEd, and they have a part that they have to do as well. So there's some timing in that.
Yeah, because we budgeted for it already to get there.
Rentals, people sometimes want to plug in
Yeah,
whatever,
Yeah.
popcorn maker, stuff like that.
right.
Stuff like
It will be out there. Yeah.
Okay.
It'll get there, but these are also, we can host other events out there, Rotary events, JC events, we could do chamber events, we could have other things that would really highlight the community, food truck events, just like what the Rotary just did with the chamber and what was that whole event called? I can't remember. We have so many different things going on.
National Night Out.
National Night Out, thank you, Chief, thank you. But that was very well received. Just the amount of people that were in the tent that were there was impressive. So having something like that would really, I think, facilitate more people using the facility. And this could be a revenue stream, but minimal that could offset some expenses. But I do see things moving forward with people using it for particular private events, public events.
Did we also discuss the fact that we might be putting something out there to get some matches to help with this? I mean, didn't we talk about getting
Right.
other people to donate as, we could be building up more and more money towards this, whether it be individual residents, it could be businesses, you might have some of our bigger companies say, hey, I want to put some money towards this.
Exactly. And
So I mean, we don't, I don't think we have, definitive what's all going to happen, where all the money's going to come from. But in my humble opinion, if you're going to build it, you build it properly. And I think this is something that's going to be a highlight of that whole area. I mean, we do have money. We also had money set aside to improve this whole development when we all went through all this with Meyer and we had money in the Land Conservancy Fund. I think that if you build it proper in the beginning, it's a lot better than saying, hey, we're going to hold off and add this later. I think it becomes more expensive. I think that I want to be very frugal with our money, but I think, again, we have other opportunities to raise some funds for this. So if you're going to ask me what do I like best, I like option 4 best. But sometimes I can have champagne taste on a beer budget. So keeping that in mind, I'm just saying that's what I like best, if that's what we're looking for.
Eric, one more question about the dual sidewalks, like on option 3 and 4 versus 2 and 1. What was the thought process of having the continuation of the sidewalk, considering the pass right there?
Symmetry, obviously from the shelter, there's probably some desire to head north and head towards the east side of the lake, whereas with the sidewalk just on the one side toward the accessible parking, you're kind of directing them just to that one side of the lake. So obviously
All
people,
the ADA is in front, right, where you can be dropped off and stuff, the access.
The ADA is on the south side.
Right, over here, you can kind of see it.
That's the south. Okay, I missed that part.
yes, there is a incorporated into the design that Hitchcock proposed. There's some sidewalk along the outside of that
Okay, that's,
aisle, and then a path between and through the flower,
Okay.
the planting bed.
okay.
But
Oh, yeah, I
the ADA, the actual parking is on the south side of the lot.
Yes, it is. Right now, it's currently over here, so we're just proposing to shift it to the other side of that current path off the parking lot.
Right.
There's also likely other programmed amenities in the park with the OSLAD grant that we applied for, which we hope to hear back later this winter or spring. That did include more amenities in the north side that people might travel between the pavilion and those amenities. And the pavilion itself was part of that grant application. So in parallel to this process, we're hopeful that we'll get some grant funding in that program.
Right.
So that will also further kind of reduce that local share that's left.
There's also with that north walk, you can see there's a bump out that Director Morimoto included for outdoor seating.
By the fireplace.
Yes, we have a dual-sided fireplace that we're looking to see if that is feasible, where not only could you enjoy it from inside the pavilion, but outside the pavilion, which is why there's some additional concrete costs, and we think that makes sense there.
Well, as Trustee McAlpine had stated, we do have an opportunity. We've been challenged by the donors to raise an additional $100,000. And I think that, once we start promoting this and channel the funds to this, I think that we would have some success. We have a responsibility to the donors that we'd said that we would challenge the community to kind of step up. And when it's hard to ask for money for something that they don't know what it is. Well, we have this pavilion, what is it going to look like? How is it going to benefit the community? So when we have something like this, I think people can sink their teeth into and say, okay, I see what this is. Or, we talked about maybe there's businesses in town that would like naming rights or, something of that nature. So there are sponsorship opportunities out there as well.
Having utilized both the Veterans Acres and the Three Oaks examples are used, I'm certainly in favor of the fireplace amenity. Having an eye towards the overall cost, though, I agree with Trustee Weinheimer that we really need to pay attention to that volume. So without those funds being secured, I would be more in favor of option 2. And then as additional funds through grants or through fundraising become more likely, look at the last two pieces, the two-sided fireplace, additional patio space, and additional north walkway as kind of an add-on once it's a little more financially doable for the village.
Eric, with the grant that you had applied for that you're waiting to hear back from, I don't know how the grants work. Is there a certain dollar amount that would go towards specifically the pavilion? And if so, if we were awarded that, what would that be?
We had, when we applied for the grant and the amounts that we were requesting, we had utilized this general design in mind. I didn't have all the exact details at that point since schematic design hadn't been completed, but it was generally close to this budget. And then maybe Andy or Steve, if you're on the Zoom, you might want to add to that.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we did use the OSLA grant budget and design to that for this grant. It is a 50/50 matching grant program, which Eric had indicated. And so those are line item out in a site development cost for the overall grant. And so we're aligned with that as far as, we got quotes and other information to determine what amount to put in for the pavilion for that grant. So again, it would be a 50/50 match.
Okay, but let me get a little more detail to make sure I'm understanding this. So let's think optimistic that we're going to get the OSLA grant. And so let's say that, and again, that's why I think we're trying to figure out numbers here, but if we estimated 400,000 or 300,000 and we're getting 50%, we're either getting 150 or 200 of it. And if we've got 100,000 from the Klinicki's, then from our generous donors, we're in a position where our exposure is not as, to me, it's not a lot of money. I mean, if we would have done it on ourselves, and if the Rotary is helping to pay for it, I think that the funds, I think that it can be very workable where we're not taking a lot of our funds to do this, that we're getting it funded through various sources.
Can we hold
That
off?
is correct.
Can we
So,
hold?
if you had 100,000 match for the Rotary, and then if that was applied for that 50/50 matching program, then, you would get the
We do it
another
fully done.
100,000 through the housing grant, should that be awarded to this project.
Right, and then the donation.
Can we hold off on making a decision until we find out if we get the grant? What is the reason for making, or I understand for the discussion for the committee of the whole, but I mean, can we wait? Is there any rush to go ahead and make this decision?
I guess it just depends on when the board wants to complete the project. We still have to get, plans put together. We got to bid the project. From my understanding, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we'd hear about the grant, in the springtime. So if we wait until that time, it just would push the project out. So that's certainly a decision for the board.
Yeah, the other reason for our timing is the ideal time to put a project like this out to bid is in the winter time. So if we have a strong desire to see this project built in 2022 and actually used a bit in 2022, we do need to get it bid out in the winter time and move forward at this pace. We could take a pause and see where the grant is and go from there, but whether it's with the grant or if the project's going independently, we probably wouldn't see this project completed till the very end of the year at the earliest, and possibly not used till the spring of 23.
Well, could we, for argument's sake, can we bid it out at one thing and we could always modify it if we got closer and we found out we didn't get the money and we had to scale back a little bit? Is that a possibility?
That is why I'm suggesting here, I wanted to gauge which facets the committee liked that we have shown here, but we purposely have laid it out here as a base bid with bid alternates. So yes, we would send it out to bid. I don't want to overcomplicate it and make and unduly impact the numbers the wrong way, but having a few options that we can get pricing on through the bid process and then accept or reject at that point. That's a common practice that we are suggesting here.
I would agree with that. Just do the base bid, do the options. We're going to know as it gets closer. I don't want to not send the bid out and then to be in a position that we lose all of 2022. But if all of a sudden we come back and we're not getting as much money as we want, or we don't have the funding, we can say we're not going to add some of these amenities at this point. But to not do the bid and to sit and wait until spring to do the bid, to me is not a prudent or wise decision. I think we should get the bid out and we can decide what we're going to do once we know a little bit more.
Trustee
One
Conlon?
item I do bring up is the item of lead times, and I know with the current situation we're in, the lead times for lots of products and the cost of products obviously are very volatile at this point in time. We don't know when those will stabilize, and so we're looking at a couple of lead manufacturers. Singapore is just we have a quote right now, but just to give you an idea of lead times from the point of purchase, and once this order is signed, to move forward with the shelter with the manufacturer. There is a final engineering phase where we get stamped signed structural drawings for the shelter that would typically take about 2 or 3 weeks to get those structural drawings back. We review those, and then after that gets approved, it's about an 8-week lead time to actually have it delivered on site. So just keep that in mind that once you get a bid in from a contractor through the public bid process, that you still have some time allocated for the final engineering and approximately 2 months or 8 weeks before it would show up on site. So I just wanted to indicate that. And that's kind of best case scenario with one of the 2 or 3 manufacturers we're looking at for cost. In that case, we would recommend that we also get typically like a cooperative purchasing discount through purchasing it directly to about 10% of the cost of the shelter. And so I just wanted to bring that up as well, that there is some savings with ordering directly as opposed to having it going through a general contractor that would mark it up. And so we're indicating that in the cost to fit in. But I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of the lead times. Also, the other note is we have quotes now. Those quotes tend to bounce around quite a bit, and obviously they're bouncing around in the other direction. And so in the past, we would have announcements around the Illinois Park and Rec Association, which is in January. We're not sure when they're going to announce it. We do know there's quite a few housing grants that were submitted, but also that there's quite a lot of money available. And so I think, waiting until that January period to see when they may announce it. We continue to check in with the grant administrators to see, but there's no indication that they are going to announce it in January or February at this point. But I think we should have more information at that point in time. And hopefully pricing as well. We will need to get updated quotes. We'll kind of stabilize it. There would not be too much of an increase between now and January, February area.
And that lead time that Andy mentioned, it can vary manufacturer to manufacturer. Some of them are substantially longer than 2 months to 3 months. So that's just another factor that if we wait too much into the spring or summer, it does quite possibly could turn into a 2023 project.
Trustee Collier, did you have any comments?
So on the bid process, if we went with option 4 for now and bid it at that, we can scale back. Yes or no? That's where I'm confused.
I believe so. The fireplace might have some effects on the structure and the foundation and everything with and without. But generally speaking, yes, those are pieces that we should be able to piece out as bid alternates.
So yeah, I'd like to see the bid on 4 and see where we stand.
Trustee Dudek, comments?
Yeah, I've got a number. First off, how many people can this shelter fit? The way you got it proposed. I thought I saw like 6 picnic benches under there, which to me doesn't seem like it's very big.
It's 30 feet by 52 feet. So it is not quite as large as the one in Prairie Grove, but within 5 to 8 feet in length of it. What you see there is it is to scale, but it was just me placing just for demonstration purposes. Okay. You could fit more tables under there.
Okay.
How large is the pavilion? Does anybody know, at Caper?
That's much smaller.
Is it right? It's got like 10 tables under it.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So going back to your options, Eric, I mean, I think I had mentioned early on, I was not enamored with the first set of drawings for the pavilion that we put together, but I understand it was a different time then. I like the idea of having the fireplace, the 2-sided fireplace. Concrete you can always add after the fact, so I get the symmetry part, but I don't know if you have a breakdown for what the walkway cost is.
It was about $14,000.
Okay, so not a big number. I could take or leave the symmetrical walkways, but one thing I would like to see us do, and I've mentioned this on a couple of occasions before, I think that patio piece, that's an excellent idea. I really like that. But to me, that just screams buy a brick and do a brick paver patio there and let residents of the community who may go here to use this see that their family owns a brick in the patio. If we don't sell enough bricks, I'm sure we could figure out what to do with them, and we can always, then just do it in cement. But I think that would be kind of a cool place to do a buy a brick. But I definitely think we should go with the fireplace, and I could take or leave the $14,000 for the north-facing sidewalk. I just think probably today is not necessary.
So you're at 2. Option
Yeah, 2 with the patio, though. He doesn't have a patio on 2. And I think we should have the patio.
That's part of the $14,000 to add the patio?
Oh, it is the patio and the sidewalk together is $14,000, Eric?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then I think we should add the patio, and I would like to see if we could do it with a buy a brick type of concept.
Trustee Cavalli, any comments?
Interestingly enough, I was going to say the exact same thing. I like the bump out, but I could take or leave the walkway as well. I do like the dual-sided fireplace. I think it's got a lot of potential, especially with the bump out, but I can get rid of the sidewalk and be happy with that.
Well, I think majority of everybody likes the, option 2, but maybe option 4, but, we can bid these out for a bid alternate. Maybe things will fall into place a little bit more towards it, but I think it would be in the best interest of the village to bid this out the way we really want to do it. And then if we have to make that decision to scale it back, then we scale it back. We have some work ahead of us to do with the Rotary to get everything known. And I do like the idea, Trustee Dudek, about making part of that a paver brick where you can, so I had to figure out how much we can find out how much that would cost to, manufacture the bricks with the names and embossed in them. I don't know how much, what that would be.
Junior high did it on their football field.
Yeah, so did St. Peter and Paul. A few of them did it.
So that'd be, that could offset it. And I think that could be a big, we can, that would be a great thing for the community too.
What about bricks from the Metro building? Just saying,
Well, when is that coming down here?
just saying,
I gotta
Trying
find
to
a guy to
reuse
back into
things,
it.
okay?
Eric, did you, the fireplace option, did we show this just one, or is there the skinny and the wider?
Oh, yeah.
We showed both in the schematic design. The cost estimate reflects the wider, just for
Okay.
simplicity's sake.
Just a point of note for the board, we're recommending the wider fireplace. We've looked at a skinnier one just from a cost savings, or I guess optional, but we think the wider is more appropriate.
I do
Do
too.
we know if the materials here, is this a made in USA product? That, the pavilion
The
itself?
cedar? Talk about like the actual structure
Yeah,
of the
because
building?
you mentioned this is kind of like a prefab.
I can speak on that, sorry to interrupt there, but the columns are not your standard columns. If we went that route, then we'd have like 16 columns, which would be just kind of your standard sheltering. So by reducing the number of columns, you're going to open view towards the lake. The actual columns themselves are four-foot cedar. So they're beefy columns, and they will look really nice with the stone column wraps. The arched glulam beams will be a Southern Yellow pine, which is kind of typical for the glulams. And then it will have tongue-and-groove decking underneath, so you have that warm feel of Southern Yellow pine, tongue-and-groove decking underneath with fiberglass shingles for longevity. So it's going to really kind of fit within the more natural characteristics of the site. And Port Orford cedar definitely is a quality material that's going to look nice out there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on this? Think you got some direction here?
All right.
Thank
Thank you very
Eric.
much. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Now back up to Eric, stick around. Wastewater, the water and sewer, of the village's municipal code, updating the amendment to Title 13.
Sorry to disappoint, but I'm going to step back and let Courtney and Deputy Director Stein take this one.
Oh, okay, Courtney.
Just going to give Eric a little break. Staff has gone ahead and done a comprehensive review of Title 13, which focuses on the water and sewer regulations in the village. And amendments have been identified that we're going to present on today. They are based on recent minor issues staff has come across or to meet current best practices. So Deputy Director Stein is going to handle going through each of the amendments.
Yeah, hi, now you know why I'm here.
Now I know I'm here. Nice to see you, John.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Yeah, most of these are just some additions to, like Courtney said, some of the things that we just need to clarify in our code. The first one is basically, this is for the water service line going from the water main to the house. And this is to clarify a few things. When we get new construction, a lot of times they'll end up putting the valve box, the shut-off boxes in a parkway. It might end up in a driveway, it might end up in the sidewalk, the carriage walk, and then we take care, we maintain that box, and if we have to, now we're taking out a driveway. So part of this change is that to not have it put in a driveway or under pavement. Because you'll see later, one of the other amendments we want to make is that the village is going to take ownership of once the water service line is installed, the homeowner of building install the water line from the main to the building, but then the village will own from the B box to the water main. Part of that is when there are issues with leaks between the water main and the shutoff valve, we have to get involved for the repairs, and we end up kind of taking over the repairs because we can do them where we don't take down the water system, or if a contractor, we'd have to shut it all with them. So this one kind of is dovetailed into what you'll see later on one of the clarifications on where the homeowner's responsibility and the village responsibility happens. So simple addition there, it's just an addition of that last sentence that we have highlighted, underlined on there. I have mine highlighted, but
Any changes are in blue.
Yeah. So that's that one. Pretty simple. The next one is this would be all new verbiage to our code, and this is to deal with, we don't have anything in our current code to address private water wells or private water systems within the village. And we kind of, this language changes, like it starts out, there'll be no new private wells or water systems where we have village water main. This falls in line, it's supportive of what the county directive already is. And also when I looked at the surrounding communities, everybody has, all our other communities around us have some sort of language about private water wells. So, and as I was looking, I've had a few calls in the last year about people in areas where we have lower water pressure that they want to install these booster pumps. That's a pump inside their home to increase the pressure where we have lower, some areas have lower pressure than others. And we had no language to protect our water system for installation of these. So that's why the step C called the booster pump is to have something for us in the building department if a booster pump is installed. We can give them some direction and guidance on that. And that falls in line with the plumbing code and what other communities are doing with their code also.
How would you know if someone installed that in their home? Would something on the public works side like alert you to it, meaning that there's being more water usage there than typical, or you guys really wouldn't know?
I suppose somebody could install one without getting a hold of us. We would hope they would get a building permit and do all the correct things. And a lot of times to engineer that, they'll want information on the water system, what kind of water main we have, how big, the pressures, the current pressures, and that they will call Public Works. They're usually defaulted to me to get those questions, or one of the water operators. So then we'd think was, what's your address? What are you doing? And we'd get information, so we would document that. So I'm sure somebody could put one in, like, people at times will do home improvement projects without, but they don't.
It should be permitted, is what the.
Yeah, this would be a permitted thing.
Okay.
And then we can give them direction.
Thank you for explaining that.
Okay, the next one is, this is to do with our cross connection or backflow program. We're in the middle of, we sent out that mailer here a few weeks ago, and we have a survey online we have to do audits per the EPA. This is, so water cannot backflow from, once it gets inside your property, back into the village system. Things like dental offices, and if people have processes that they're using water and they're having like soda fountains and things, if something would go wrong, they could put pressure and push something back into our water system. So this is a valve basically to stop that from happening. They have to have these certified once a year by a licensed plumber, and we track that. And so it was a little bit where we had dates, so we're scratching the dates. They're instead of the 15th of the year, we're making it, if you have it done today, a year from now. Just kind of clean it up, make it easier to understand for the folks that have to submit these annual reports. Okay, this was brought to us as I just was in a conversation with our finance folks. Currently, for somebody that has a non-paid water bill and it's past due, where we have to go to the point of disconnecting their water for non-payment, there's currently a $20 $25 fee for us to go out and turn the water back on, or it's to cover the costs. Financing, that's very low. And our finance contractor, they deal with, I forget how many different communities, but they brought up that most communities, it's somewhere between $50 and $100 that these other communities charge. And we did a quick little survey, and that's true. So they recommended we should be raising that. So we're suggesting that we raise that reconnection fee from $25 to $50. Okay, in our code, when somebody's building a home or whatever, a building, whatever, when they come in and the permits, they have an option to pay currently $33 extra as part of the water connection fee, and that's to allow them to use water during construction that's non-metered. A lot of times we'll liven up and they just have a pipe in there where the water meter is going to go till they're ready for occupancy and they put the meter in. From what I can tell by, I've been with the village 11 years, I think this fee has always been $33. And talking to some of the longer employed folks, the spirit of this was enacted that they kind of came up with an estimate that for things like, cleaning, when they paint, cleaning up, mortar for mixing, for any masonry work, things like that, they came up with, I believe it was about 5,000 gallons of water. Well, this is how long ago. Back then, $33 would cover that water and sewer on that at those fees. Well, our rates have gone up a lot over the years. So we talked about changing the fee, but the big thing what we see is, I don't think that they're using that much water typically, but when it comes to when they do the landscaping and they're putting in sod and bushes, they start watering. And sometimes they can have their water run 24/7. And we're suggesting that we add that last sentence that this is not meant for irrigation, because we tell them once you get to irrigation, we want that meter in there so we can, for track of the water in for them to pay for, because they use a lot of water. I did some quick math today, and a typical 5/8 garden hose will deliver about 12 gallons of water a minute at 45 PSI. That's, that's on the lower side of our pressure, but just for the sake of the story. In 4 hours, that's going to use 2,800 gallons of water. And sometimes we see these hoses run, these sprinklers running for days to establish. And so we would like to, instead of trying to figure out, we want to encourage them to get in a meter, we just thought, let's put something in there. Because I've gone and talked to these contractors and said, well, I paid my $33 fees for all the water for construction. It's part of construction. Well, I don't think that was the spirit of it. So this would give us some teeth to go up. Now you're landscaping, let's get a meter put in this and we can track the actual water use, and you can pay for that to establish your landscaping. A little bit of history on that one.
Just a quick question on that. Is there a way to somehow incorporate that with inspections when you're doing, as someone's building, once it gets to a certain stage, the meter has to go in? I'm just kind of curious.
Typically, that happens when they're getting towards occupancy, to get the occupancy permit. We encourage them, you can put it in right away. Well, they're worried about it getting damaged or whatever. We're willing to drop it off. Some of like the townhomes that are going up, we'll drop off 3 or 4 meters to them, and their plumber puts them in as they go.
Okay.
But some, they wait till the last minute, or we find out the new tenant, the new owner moved in, how do I pay my water bill? And they call them, nobody ever called us.
Right.
It's not like we have that much construction, but sometimes they do slip through the cracks. But we try to keep an eye on them, we try to work with them, and some just want to wait till the last minute. They want the place looking great and the landscape all established, and then sell and get the water meter in. So
is there a, this is just a curiosity question, is there a fine if we find out that someone's not abiding by this? I mean, I understand we're putting an amendment to the section, but what's...
I know nothing in our code for at this point to allow us to fine.
Okay.
Eric, John, you mentioned this $33 fee. Are we recouping the cost of that? Does that fee need to be looked at?
Those, we talked in-house, do we want to raise the fee? Do we come up, because some construction, they don't use that much water. And the big concern for us was tracking the water, our water loss and is becoming a bigger issue. with the state and to track that. I mean, we're even now with the fire department, they kind of estimate how much water they use for when they're training. And so, because we have to report that annually. And when we see things like landscape where they're watering for days and days and, you know, that 10,000, 20,000 gallon, that adds up when you get 2 or 3 of those going on. So we looked at, you know, but we thought we really can't quantify it. We could raise that, but still, even if we raised it to $50, the amount that could go on landscaping could exceed that pretty quickly when you start looking at, they could be doing 2,000 to 3,000, 4,000 gallons a day in a 6-hour period. And that with sod or landscaping, usually they have to water for quite a few days to weeks to establish that. So
I'm just making sure we're covering our costs, but we have to, you know.
with this, it'll allow me if they're wanting to get some landscaping, if they won't work with us and get the meter in, we could then just turn the water off until they install the meter.
And we're balancing fees versus fines. So in this case, the other one that we mentioned was a fine, and more or less because you're recovering a cost from a non-payment or a violation. In this case, this is a fee that's just part of construction. So there's a balance of the customer service and not making our fees too hard we don't want to discourage development. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not giving away and losing too much water.
That was thank you.
But Eric, quick question. There would be a fine if they violated this section of the code, right? Like if you were to write them a
It's not
citation.
specifically written here, so I would imagine that it would default to the general fine provisions in our overall village code. Is that correct, Attorney Euler?
Which I believe includes turning off the water. So we would also just be able to turn off the water and then they would pay that $50
$50 fine.
Okay.
We want to be fair, but realistic.
And then finally, I think this is to do with the sanitary lateral from the building to the village main. Just addition of a couple of words. We run into this, especially when folks have an issue with their lateral. They wonder where their responsibility starts and ends, whether it needs to be root cut or replaced. And this is just to clarify, it was a simple addition of the words disconnect, repair, and maintenance falls to the homeowner. Just a simple addition. It makes it, we've had some people really question, where does it say in your code that the line is mine? Well, this will clear that up for us.
So those are all of the proposed amendments. Are there any other questions? All right, then we will plan to have this on a future village board meeting.
Thank you, Courtney and John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nothing else on the agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. 7:20. Thank you.